two things which I'm going to do together. Bug is out this week. Now, regular listeners will remember, not this Cannes that's just gone. The Cannes a year ago. Friedkin's new film, Bug, based on the play by Tracy Letts, premiered. And it's an incredibly intense story about two people holed up in a motel room. One of them is a woman who seems to be on the edge of derangement. The other one is, and she lives in fear of her horrible husband coming back to find her. The other one is a guy who is a war veteran who is convinced that he has been implanted with a bug by the government, and they get together in this hotel room and they go crazy together. And it is an incredibly intense psychological drama. And when it played in Cannes, it won the Fipresci Prize in Cannes. It got really, really good reviews. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was the most exciting thing I saw in Cannes that year. And I know that I'm a Friedkinophile. I understand that. But I said at the time, and I stand by it, it was the best thing he'd made since Cruising, because he has had his ups and downs. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's made bad films. The Brink's Job is a bad film. There's really big problems with Sorcerer. Deal of the Century is a terrible film. So don't give me all this, everything Friedkin likes, everything Friedkin makes, Mark likes. No,
I haven't said that.
No, but people do.
You look at me when you say that.
I'm looking at you as a representation of the general public, right? Deal of the Century stinks. Okay, it's a bad film. Right. You haven't even seen it.
No, I haven't.
And I'm getting cross at you for something you haven't even said.
But I'm not going to go and see it because you just told me it's rubbish.
But Bug is brilliant. Real return to form. So, and it was reviewed by Roger Ebert, big American critic, who said, wow, it's a brilliant, right back on form. It's like watching a film directed by a young man, incredible intensity, extraordinary performance by Ashley Judd. I mean, really, really stand-up performance by Ashley Judd, who I've never seen in that kind of level of good. Michael Shannon, who's a great rising star. You've seen him in things like World Trade Center, really ripping up the screen. And it's a psychological horror movie, and it's a kind of borderline, really dark, erotic thriller, and it's mad, and it's insane, and it's intense, and it's really stripped down, and it's like people doing their best possible work. And then for a year and a half, basically, it doesn't see the light of day. It doesn't get released. Nothing happens. It's got all these accolades. People who, it's not a big movie. It's not a mainstream movie, but I'm really not kidding you. It's really full on. And the screening that I was in, some people were walking out in certain moments. There are moments in which it's quite shocking. Other people, you either loved it or hated it, but it wasn't a film that people came out going, that was a bit boring. Now, finally, a year and a half later, it limps out in, as far as I can tell, one screen in London, no advertising, no sort of, major hoopla. I mean, I think the release was only announced last week. Meanwhile, at the same time, Good Luck Chuck is opening with things all over telephone boxes.
Exactly.
Right?
See last week's correspondence.
Exactly. All over telephone boxes, which they said last week means mark of a bad film. Not true, actually, because Shaun of the Dead was heavily
apart
advertised
from
on
that,
the phone. I can't think of another one, but Shaun of the Dead is really the exception that proves the rule. That meaning in the proper sense of it.
Yeah.
It's the
basically, this email said, if it's advertised big time in a phone box, it's going to be a bad film. Let's take Shaun of the Dead out of it as a rule of thumb.
Well, that's like saying,
works.
all great rock bands can't have a female drummer. Let's take the Carpenters out of it. The point is, you can't take out the exception that proves the rule.
You're stretching that somewhat.
She was a great drummer. You can tell me that Karen Carpenter wasn't a great drummer?
No.
You're just
arguing with a teenager. I never even suggested that.
Well,
Taylors, they were great.
The Taylors, yes.
Anyway, Good Luck Chuck. Is it any good?
No. So
there you go then.
So Good Luck Chuck comes along. It's a really grisly, horrible, bathsome American comedy with this really grotesquely loathsome guy. And the setup is he's a good luck charm. Whoever he sleeps with, the next person they meet, they will fall in love with and meet the love of their life. So this is a film that imagines that all women are desperate to meet the love of their life. They exist only to take their clothes off and to go to clinics in which they have their breasts made larger, and that's the most hilariously funny thing on earth. A montage of a bloke having sex with all these women will be hilariously funny and racy in a kind of sub-Porky's way. But then he meets a woman that he actually wants to love, and here's the dilemma. You see, if he gets down with her, then the next person that she meets she'll fall in love with. So it's terrible. So he has to really have a proper relationship with her. And that was a role that was turned down by Jennifer Love Hewitt, right? Jennifer Love Hewitt said, no, I'm not going to do that role. And that's an indication of how bad it was. And I was sitting there watching this film thinking, this is repugnant, it's misogynist, it's stupid, it's badly put together, it's not funny, this guy's really, really creepy. And it ends up, incidentally, with a post-credits, during the credits, a hilarious sequence of this guy and a toy penguin. And this scene goes on and on. And incidentally, they're being watched on a video, him with the toy penguin, by the guy's best friend and his new 3-breasted wife, which again is the most hilarious thing in the whole world. And I'm literally sitting there thinking, I'm getting ill. It's like it's infecting me. It's like there's some.
It's a Woody Allen impression coming up now.
I became like I was like, because in Bug, what happens is the two characters start to believe that they are actually completely infested with this evil thing, and I think I've become the character from Bug. I've escaped from the William Friedkin film. I'm sitting here in Good Luck Chuck, and this thing is eating my soul from the inside. I can actually feel my soul being sucked out through my ears. I can feel everything starting to shut down, and I'm just going, and I'm thinking, we now live in a world in which Bug is getting a little opening like this, and Good Luck Chuck is getting an opening like this, and here, decline of all Western civilization and end of world apocalypse. Here, possible future in which everything is better.
Why do you do a little high-pitched voice?
Because that's what the Bug opening is like. It's like tiny, tiny little opening, and the big. It's like, you know. I really thought that's what we've come to. That is what we've come to.